I still think they're dark horses, and they are the most experienced team in the league.
Every A-League team should be putting their request in to talk to him now.
Yeah, I mean, good luck to a team trying to defend those three in the box.
Because he was someone that attracted interest from La Liga.
Anyone who wasn't there and then sees that photo thinks, I want to go to the next time. I want to go to that and be there and experience that, and they should.
Here's Juan Mata. Look, he's out there pointing to the other side.
That's the difference between him and what other players would do.
This is the transformative effect that a marquee can have on a football club.
Special. Unbelievable! This, ladies and gentlemen, is football.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Total A-Leagues. Round 18 of the Isuzu A-League is in the books. James Dodd, Daniel McBreen and Tommy Orr with you here to discuss everything that unfolded, gents. Let's start with the moments of the round, shall we? Again, we know who he's going to pick. There's no surprise. 8 wins in a row. It's going to be the Newcastle Jets. Macca, I'll give you the honours. You can lead us off.
Yeah, next week I'm going to jump in and just say the Jets before he gets to choose his. But I'm going to go with their fiercest rivals, the Mariners. They're finding a way to win. They're the second most informed team behind the Jets at the moment. And maybe they should have lost this game, but they are finding a way to win. 3 wins in a row, undefeated in 5, up to 7th. And Warren Moon has got something cooking on the coast, and he's doing a great job with his staff and the players, and it was great scenes on the weekend.
Some great goals as well, you've got to say. I think, all 3 goals. I think that last goal from Donaghy was very well taken, the way he sorted his feet, but it's great for the coast, given the off-field stuff, that they've got something to cheer about.
Good to see a number 2 scoring goals for the Mariners too as well. I always like that.
Come on then. Box office Jets.
Yeah, it's got to be.
Week?
I think it wasn't the box office Jets this week, but getting another win. Not in their normal style, but it was a little bit more plucky than we've come to expect from them. But they've got to be happy. Another clean sheet as well. I think defensively they've really turned a corner, which we've spoken about a lot on this show. And Bayless as well. Again, red hot form, and they're just too hot to handle at the moment.
I think more like the boxing Jets this week, because it was more of a scrap, it was more of a fight. They had it tough and they found a way to win, and that's what good teams do. You can't always be flamboyant and tear teams apart. Macarthur seemed to stifle them a bit, but they find a way to win, and they're still flying high.
Great turnout too.
Great turnout too. My moment this week, we're going to talk about all of these throughout the course of the show, but Juan Mata. El Mago, as he's known in Spanish, the magician. I mean, not just the goals, gents, but because, we're going to let Macca wax lyrical about these a bit later on, but just everything around this man and what he's slowly being able to achieve in this victory side, given time and given space and given the opportunity to do so. I mean, the goals have gone all around the world. You saw Bruno Fernandes, his teammates at Manchester United, David De Gea looking at it. The whole football world was talking about Juan Mata, and that's so good for the A-League, for someone of his calibre to be able to do what, we always hope marquee players can do.
Yeah, without it. He is the perfect marquee as far as what he brings off the field, his attitude, the way he's bought into the Australian footballing landscape from the moment he got here. It would have been easy for him last year to just throw it all away and go, Australia's not for me. But he's come with a vengeance, and he's playing regularly, week in, week out, and we're reaping the benefits.
I feel like in the last month or so he's found another gear even. I think that, obviously we've seen glimpses and, his quality all season, but I think he is really taking the team by the scruff of the neck, and it's no coincidence that they're flying up the table. Yeah,
we will be talking about Juan Mata and all those topics a little bit later on. The first port of call, though, for us today is going to be this weekend's F3 Derby. The Mariners are a team in form. The Jets are obviously 8 wins in a row. It's obviously quite easy to say this because, the Mariners will definitely be looking at trying to upset the Jets, knowing that record is on the line. They're trying to go for 10 wins. They're flying high at the top of the league. But the Mariners are the second most informed side in the competition behind the Jets. They're going to cause them plenty of problems this week, aren't they?
They are. Look, I think some of us scoffed a little bit at the Mariners when the players they brought in. And that's no disrespect to the players, but they were bringing players who had been in the NPL space, Ali Ogla, Danel, Laval. These guys had sort of, through one reason or another, had ended up back into that space. They've actually brought energy. Ali Olga's been fantastic. He scored a couple of great goals. Laval's been causing all kinds of problems up the top. The Japanese player, and I always want to say Tamagotchi, but it's Taniguchi.
Keita Taniguchi.
Yeah, he is still just, I think, is settling his way in. But they've brought an energy, and we heard Redders talk about it after the game, saying there's a little bit of a vibe around, and they know that they're a team that has to put their backs against the wall. They don't have any star-studded Juan Matas or these kind of players, that they are a team that has to bond together. And I think Warren Moon and Josh Rose and all their staff have got the players to buy into that. And all of a sudden now they've got this belief. And throughout the course of the start of the season, when they were in games but they weren't getting the results, they were always competitive. They always made teams fight to get the win, and they never got beat 5-0, 4-0 when maybe some people might have predicted that. Now they're actually starting to turn the tide a little bit and get the points and the results, and they're moving up the table.
I completely agree with you. I think the biggest turning point for them has been the cutting edge in the front third, because even, as you said, at the start of the season when they were in games and, not necessarily losing by a lot, they just weren't able to score goals, and you always wondered where are the goals going to come from. They weren't creating a lot. Now it looks like on the counter-attack in particular, every time they attack, they look likely. And I think that, you have to give Warren Moon so much credit because, as you said, I think everybody's written off that team, and there's a lot of NPL players who have come in and maybe players without big names, but he is getting everything out of that squad. And if they continue on this run, I think that they're every chance to get into the six. And I think that you have to give Warren Moon a lot of credit for that.
100%. The Mariners never give up, do they? They are just 3 points outside the top six heading into round 19 of the Isuzu A-League. So what is it that's changed on the coast? That was the question put to Andrew Redmayne after the full-time whistle on Sunday.
Yeah, I said early in the season, I think the team kind of sums up the Central Coast. We haven't got the bells and whistles, but we roll up our sleeves and we have a crack. And it's a fantastic bunch of boys. Really enjoying my football here, and it's games like this that really make me wish that you can kind of play forever.
As you say, you're up to 7th. What's possible?
Who knows? Anything's possible, but I'm a realist. We've got a long way to go. There's still 9 games. There's a lot we need to work on, but I think bringing some boys in January has really added some quality, and bring on the rest of the year.
Bring on the rest of the year. Bring on the F3 Derby this weekend. Both of you have played in this fixture. I mentioned just before we got into the discussion about the tactical side of things, the carrot of having the chance to ruin the Newcastle, the
Massive.
winning massive, right? So how much does Warren Moon incorporate that into his discussions with the players this week? How much is he not pinning things up on the dressing room wall, but saying, you've got the chance to do this?
I don't think he needs to. I don't think the players, that comes organically from the players and from the fans. There's a feeling around the club. Everybody in the Central Coast will be talking about this game all week. I think, the only thing that the fans and the players will enjoy more than maybe winning themselves is their biggest rival not winning and maybe ruining their record chances. So, the motivations will speak for themselves. And to be honest, the plucky Mariners, we saw in round 1, Jets went into that game off the back of winning the FA Cup or the FFA Cup. They were, the talk of the town and the most informed team, you could argue, and the Mariners, got the better of them. So I think it would be silly for anyone to rule them out going into this week as well.
Yeah, and when you talk about ruling them out, it's always been the Mariners have been the smallest club with the smallest budgets. It's famously known as the little club that could. But they always seem to find a way, and they're starting to get that belief again now. And third most successful team as far as trophies behind Sydney and Melbourne Victory. So I wouldn't be writing them off. And I can tell you right now that discussions would be that, these so-and-sos up the road are going to cop it from us. We can't let them get this record, and that'll be a big driving factor.
And I think if you look at the first game, the way they won that game was they got in their faces, and we know Newcastle loves to play their football, and they just made life difficult for them. They were so aggressive, they gave them no time on the ball, and I think you can expect the exact same thing this weekend.
Yeah, well, hopefully coming down the road from Newcastle will be a huge cohort of fans as well. We're expecting there to be a lot of Jets fans who travel to Polytech Stadium on Sunday. So let's talk about the Jets, shall we? Because we've been so used to the tag of box office Jets for the last 7-8 weeks in particular. But they weren't box office, but they were resilient, and they got the job done in trying circumstances against a different way in which Macarthur operated against them. So what was it that stood out to you, Macca, first and foremost, about the Jets and the way that Mark Milligan's side were able to win that game in a way that they haven't done necessarily in games prior to that?
Yeah, well, we've seen earlier in the season where they were plucky. I think it was Melbourne City where they were down a few players and they came back late. I think also in Auckland where they were coming and they held on. There might have been one or other two. But good teams find a way Macarthur were very good at stifling the Jets in wide areas where we know their movement and ball movement is so great. Forward runs, but they didn't allow them to get those players to face forward and play those balls forward. So they had to find a way. And what the good thing about the Jets this year is they haven't relied on one player to just get the job done. It's, well, I'm going to step up this week. When that player's made, like Clayton Taylor on the weekend, was pretty quiet, scored a hat-trick the other week. Yeah. Then Lockie Bayliss is now in a rich vein of form. Yeah. He steps up and scores a scrappy goal. And that's the thing. The good teams will find a way, and a player, whether it be this player, that player, another player, will step up and go, well, it's my turn to shine today, and I'll get us over the line. And they have a habit of doing that now. And I think that for them would have been a great, when they come in at the end of that and go, gee, we didn't play well, but we still got the result. Yeah,
and I think if you look at the evolution of this Jets team as the season has gone on, I think at the start of the season, and Millsy said this himself, there was a lot of emphasis on with the ball. And I think that they thought that, if they can have the ball for most of the game and dominate, you're going to cop maybe conceding a few goals. But I think that was really important to how he wanted to approach the games, was working, I think 80 or 90% of his training methods were his team in possession. And I think that once they got better at that, he could start to put more attention on the defensive side of the game. And now you're seeing the fruits that he's bearing because of that extra work he's been able to do there. And you just said it, and it's exactly right. I think great teams, when they're not at their best, they either find a way to win or not to lose, and that's exactly where they're at the moment.
And Harry Sawyer's a handful, and they finished with Harry Sawyer and Mitch Duke up top. And there was a little bit of dark arts going on. There was a little bit of defenders maybe pulling shirts, holding on when they need to. That desperation in the box as well. That there was one gold shirt, then another, and then another, and that has changed for me as well. That desperation in the back to not concede has really ramped up as the season's gone on.
Let's talk a little bit more about the man on the screen behind us, Lockie Bayliss. Show. I think it's 5 goals for the season now for him. He seems to be one of these players that I don't know whether it's maybe because, he's out of contract at the end of the season, like a lot of players in the league are, but he knows there's people that are watching him. There's the chance of going to a World Cup coming up, of course. Like, what is it particularly about Lockie Bayliss that you think has maybe helped get the best out of him in this setup?
I think this style of play suits him very much so as well, but also we've seen him utilised more as a holding midfielder in the past. He never, that traditionally wasn't his position. All the way coming through, he was an attacking midfielder and more an 8 or 10 and even utilised as a winger sometimes. Yeah. But I think just the way that this team plays and him getting into his more natural position, and Millsy probably going, just go and show us what you can do. He's taken the bull by the horns, and what a great time with the World Cup coming on, going out of contract. Everyone wants to perform well then, but also his little routine that he has with a few of his mates where they stand around the sprinkler before the game and they wait when it pops up who it hits. Oh, you're going to score the goal today. He told me the last 3 weeks he's been the one who's been hit by the sprinkler, and he's scored in every game that he's been hit. So
you can expect the Mariners to turn the sprinklers off this week. Mark Milligan won't be too happy about it.
Talking about Mark, he'd be absolutely delighted over that one. Let's hear from the Jets boss, shall we, Mark Milligan. He was specifically asked about Lockie Bayliss' chance and whether or not he thinks he should be going to the World Cup with New Zealand. Take a listen.
There's a big cherry for him as well, this form that he has as well. I know that the national team's paying attention and having a look, and we've spoken about this from day one. I want them to be ambitious. I want them to have lofty goals for themselves, whether that's national team or throughout their career down the track. And he's putting his best foot forward, and that comes, and again, like I said, we spoke about this, that comes when the team is working so hard for each other and the team is doing well, then that individual success will follow. It doesn't always happen when you want it to happen or how you want it to happen, but like I said, the attitude of these players puts them into discussions at the moment that they should be in.
Definitely should be in, according to the panel as well. So with Bayliss, with Mark Natter, someone who we've spoken about on the show earlier about these overseas interests, I understand that Alex Badalato is another player, albeit he's not out of contract, but because of the blistering start to the season that he had and the cup run as well, that there are teams in the Bundesliga that are looking at Alex Badalato, there are teams in Serie A, there are teams in MLS as well. So is there a slight concern, if you are a Jets fan, that they are doing so well at the moment that some of these players are now going to be being courted by some of these bigger teams and they might lose it? Is that the kind of the jeopardy that
you live in? That's the nature of the A-League, particularly when it's a team that does well with a lot of youngsters. The overseas is going to come knocking, and the law is too big, and that's what everyone wants. They want to have the success. I had a little bit of a conversation with Mark Milligan during the week about that, and he was like, I talked about players off contract, and he said, look, if we're doing well and they get their career advances from it, we're all happy for them. Yeah, if the club can make something off the back of that, great. But it's not the be-all and end-all. And yes, the club does have to start looking longer term. I think I said that a few weeks ago, that it can't be all about this season, because even Mark Milligan and his staff are going to start attracting, well, I know they've already started attracting eyes overseas. So they've got to start thinking, right, are we going to embed this style of play and we're going to keep it this way? So who is the next coach that comes in when Millsy does leave? And it's the same with the players that are going to fit this criteria, so they're not chopping and changing. And that's a big, big ask, to try and have that plan going 2-3 years ahead. I've spoken to the people at the club and they assure me that they're working on that.
Well, succession planning, you always got to assume that anyone can leave the next day, and you've got to have the wheels in motion ready to act on them. And I think a team that has done that well, they've lost their best young players, almost every season, is Melbourne City. Because you look at every single season, they lose 3 or 4 players, but then 3 or 4 come back in, and it's just a seamless transition. So I think that is the difficulty, or the challenge for these clubs in a salary cap league. The players come in, do well, their value goes up, and all of a sudden you can't, in a salary cap, retain all those players. So, I think that having that conveyor belt of new ones coming through, and not ones who have never played before, you need to be giving these players opportunities, so that they're a little bit match ready when the opportunity does come, and that's the challenge for Newcastle.
Yeah, challenge for Newcastle. Big challenge this weekend, of course, is the F3 Derby at Polytech Stadium. Central Coast Mariners against Newcastle Jets. Now, speaking of the Mariners, the team that they beat last weekend was Western Sydney Wanderers, a team that's often been accused of not having too much of a plan off the field. Gents, it was a game here at Polytech. I covered this game at the weekend. The Wanderers should have been out of sight in this game. The chances that they missed, they actually play very well. Ryan Fraser at the heart of everything. They come into a Southwest Derby against Macarthur this weekend. I mean, let's be positive about them where we can. What positives can you tell the fans about that maybe it's not all as bad as the results are appearing?
Well, they're not capitalising on the momentum that they're creating in games and the moments, and it's been the same story for them all season. But I guess the positive spin on that is they are creating these moments, and if they were a little bit more clinical in front of goal, this game would have been well out of sight. But at the same time, I think that if you're going to be critical, when the momentum is against them in the games, they don't have that resilience or that backbone to keep the other team out or keep them at bay. It feels like defensively they're so porous, and there's just not that kind of gritty backbone that you just spoke about Newcastle, how they've kind of developed that.
Yeah.
That's nowhere to be seen with the Wanderers.
The defensive aspect of it that you just brought up there, from mine, is when you're in a team, you want to know that your back four is a lock on, and you've got them there, and you very rarely change it. Since Gary's come in, I reckon I've seen 3 iterations of a backline in nearly every game. We've seen at one stage Dylan Cicluna was in the backline. On the weekend there was Josh Brillante came on, went into the backline. Then Panazopoulos moved out to a different area as Kenka came off. Then Ruan Tongic came on, and then Brillante stepped forward. It's like, leave the backline.
Yeah.
Keep that stable, and that's your stable base. And you talk about not being that resilient as well. It's chopping and changes. You don't feel like comfortable, and that I think that's a big problem. Try and keep that the same. On the other hand, positive. Well, Stads must be kicking himself. Ibasuki got a goal on the weekend. Ryan Fraser is, I actually think teams. Every A-League team should be putting their request in to talk to him now, because he could be the best player in the league for the next 3 years. Yeah. And I would be, if I was at a club, I'd be trying to snap his hand off to take him. Yeah. So there's some positives for Western Sydney. They just need to capitalise on those chances, the momentum. Yeah. Those momentum swings are massive for when Western Sydney are playing.
And obviously, it's been such a dire season for them so far, but at the same time, the way that the table is and teams keep beating each other, it is still too early for them. There's still a lot to play for them. I think that this weekend though against Macarthur is make or break. And I think that if they lose this, I think they can basically kiss goodbye to their finals hopes this season. But if they win, we know last year the run they went on going into the finals. I think they were 10 or 11 games unbeaten going into the finals. It's possible they could do that again with the quality of their squad, and that's a big thing to say. Yeah.
Does it feel as though they need a big win in a big game like this is? I know that the Wanderers don't necessarily want to embrace this as being like their big rivalry, but this is a massive rivalry in terms of supporter base. We know at Campbelltown Sports Stadium when Macarthur hosts the Wanderers take huge numbers down there because it's not a big trip for them to make. So Would a statement win against a Bulls side, we'll come on to in just a second, do you think it could be that injection that they need?
Well, it can just have the galvanising effect for the team. And, when things aren't going well, and Mac, I don't know if you've ever played in one of these teams, but I know I have. But when things aren't going well, it's almost like, you're winning a game and in the 70th minute, you almost kind of manifest a way not to win the game. It's like the team just has such a lack of belief in seeing the game out. And I think that's where they're at the moment. It's just like they're almost shooting themselves in the foot. When they can really put the game to bed and maybe go for a second goal, they kind of go into their shell because they're maybe just the team is completely lacking confidence. And getting a result against Macarthur is the kind of thing that could turn that around.
Well, talking of the Bulls, they are a side under Mile Stajovski that have been there or thereabouts all season, and they've been battling on two fronts. Unfortunately for Macarthur, that has come to an end. They lost in the ACL2. They went out to Bangkok United. But we saw in the game against Newcastle at the weekend, Macca, that they obviously made a few changes to the side, given that Mile had to rotate. He had to rest some people going into this game. But the introduction of Mitch Duke in the second half, up alongside Harry Sawyer, you touched on it earlier. Do you think that could be a way forward for the Bulls now? Because it looked like they clicked pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think so. And Duke will be pretty disappointed that the one that was a yard out, he just couldn't get the knee there quick enough. But that one as well, I think he saw Delianov going and he was disappointed he didn't put it in the bottom corner. But those two are a handful on their own, let alone put them together. And I think that's a real viable option. I did ask Millsy that after the game. I said, do you think this is a real viable option for them to start? Because they both have the capabilities to play 90 minutes. And that would be a real handful for having those two up front when they're getting the ball into wide areas and balls in the box. Well, it's the Jets just managed to keep Harry Sawyer on his own at bay. Imagine Dukey and him mixing and their runs in. It's a nightmare for defenders.
And I think someone like Callan Talbot, I think he's had really good delivery this season. I think that you just touched on it. It's exactly right. It all just comes down to the service they can give them at that point. And you said it as well. Luke Bratton was on the bench on the weekend. You put him in the mix, and we know how good he is on set pieces and these types of things. Tommy Ulskog as well. I mean, good luck to a team trying to defend those three in the box.
Yeah, when you've got Luke Vickery in there, whose delivery's been very good as well. He's been excellent off the bench as well. Someone else who maybe Bulls fans will feel as though they haven't seen the best of this year, but someone we know undoubtedly has the quality to be one of the best players in the Isuzu A-League is Anthony Caceres. He spoke to Ben Homer after the full-time whistle at McDonald Jones Stadium.
Where are you at right now?
Obviously a bit deflating to get knocked out of the ACL too. I thought, we had a real chance to progress in that competition, but obviously, going 2 goals down away and conceding so early in the home leg kind of killed us and gave ourselves a mountain to climb. As far as tonight goes, I felt that we were in it for the most part. We failed to defend, their goal with enough desperation. And ultimately, they're a good side. They're energetic and keep the ball moving, and it's going to be tough from then on. But, now that we have a game per week, hopefully it's a chance for us to settle, get some consistency back in our game and look to finish the season strong.
Yeah, no doubt. Anthony Caceres there. Gents, you say about the juggling 2 competitions. I mean, that will make a big difference for them, not having to do the travel to Asia, the conditions they're playing in, the humidity, the actual just stress of the body on travelling. For someone like Anthony Caceres, he's so important to this team if they are to kick on. And albeit they're in the finals mix already, and they have been the entire season, but to really solidify their position, because on their day, they are a team that can beat anyone, aren't they?
Yeah, without a doubt. And I think, obviously they're disappointed that that's come to an end, but the bright spark is now that they can now work during the week on freshening up. Also, all right, who's the next opponent? What are the tweaks we work on in training to make sure we get that right? Because they almost got, I thought they got it right against the Jets. They just were unlucky in the way the game finished. So those little details can make a big difference in the run-in. And I think when you see the depth of their squad and
this
what
was
they
early
have,
in the season when they
and this is the quality of, this is what they can deliver, but we haven't seen enough of that yet. But I think if they all start to click, they are a team that in finals, teams would be thinking, Macarthur, I'm not sure I want to play them.
I still think they're dark horses, and they are the most experienced team in the league in terms of age as well, because I think the average age of their squad's 29, which is 2 years older than the second most experienced, which is the Wanderers. But they have the know-how in the squad and players who have won things in the A-League before. So that can't be understated. And obviously, Caceres just spoke about it. 1 game a week now, the chance to physically refresh. I think that they're a team that's going to be a force to be reckoned with, going into the latter stages of this season.
So 2 questions for you on this game. By the way, this weekend at Campbelltown Sports Stadium, Ringers Western are offering some massive giveaways for fans if they turn up in cowboy or cowgirl gear. So definitely have a look online. There are going to be some great scenes on the weekend. So have a look at that and get involved if you can, if you're going to go to the game. So 2 questions. The first, does Miloš Strijovski bring Filip Kurto back into this game? Because I know he had a couple of ricks in that game that cost him against Perth, albeit cost him the 3 points. It felt a bit harsh, wasn't it, to drop Filip Kurto?
Yeah, I saw Filip Kurto after that game as he was walking out, and he cut a dejected figure. Of course, he'd had a nightmare, yeah. And I just remember saying to him, "How long have you been in the A-League?" And he said, 7 years. I said, "Mate, you've had probably 2 bad games in 7 years. Get your head up." And then he gets dropped for the next game. But it's a tough one. The young fella Robinson did well.
Yeah, he did well. Yeah,
it wasn't like you wouldn't be able to say to him, "Well, I'm dropping you because you didn't do something wrong."
And the damage sometimes, you take a keeper out, you can't make that decision lightly because they can lose their confidence. And now, if you do put Filip Kurto back in, obviously he's a very experienced player, but the action of taking him out rather than sticking with him can sometimes have a pretty detrimental effect.
And we've seen what keepers can do when they've been out for a while, isn't it?
Yeah, we'll go on to that. So quick prediction then for the South West Sydney Derby, Macarthur.
I think Macarthur will win this.
Same.
Yeah. Clean house, I think, for me as well. Right, another big rivalry taking place this week is Friday night, AAMI Park, the original rivalry, Melbourne Victory against Adelaide United. Now, this game is one of the best rivalries, if not the best, according to which side of the fence you fall on and who you support. It always creates drama. We saw it earlier in the season with the VAR drama where then Ryan Kitto went up and scored the other end. But from a Melbourne Victory perspective, let's start with them because they are the home side. We touched on the magician that is Juan Mata earlier on in the season. Earlier on the show. They just, when you have someone like this Macca in the team, it must give everybody else around them the feeling that if they're in trouble, they can give it to him and they can ease the pressure because he'll know what to do. And B, you just know that he can then create something out of nothing. And this was such a game at the weekend that, there's a reason this game went round the world at the weekend because of what someone of his class and calibre was able to do.
But not only his class and calibre, but his personality as well. Like you could easily come with someone who's done what he's done in the game and maybe see this arrogant side to him where, you guys aren't up to the standard, abusing players when they make mistakes. But he's the opposite. You can see him consistently talking to players, organising. He feels like the kind of guy that at training would have his arm around the young fellas going, in this area do this, and would be bringing them up and raising them up to another level. And he looks to be enjoying every moment. And the fact that this is the first time in a number of years now that he's played consistent football back to back to back to back. And I think we're only just starting to see. And because at the start of the year, he'd get a couple of shots around the edge of the box like he did scored days, and it would go over, and the radar was a little off. He's playing regular match minutes now, and now we're starting to see him feel... when you're in that groove, Tommy, where you're like, I'm here now. He's in that groove. And I think he's just going to keep going up as the season goes on.
And it wouldn't surprise me to see Victory do the same to coincide with that. But, we obviously just saw the footage then. But the third goal, Santos' great finish as well. But the ball through from Mata, when he gets the ball... I was a winger myself. When someone like him gets the ball, you're running 100 miles an hour because, if it's anyone else, you might be running 90% because you're not sure if they've seen you or what kind of pass they want to give you. With him, it's just you just can make the run with absolute conviction and full kind of tilt, knowing he's going to find you. He'll figure the rest out. So that kind of confidence it changes the whole dynamics of a team, having a player who can do what he can do, essentially.
And not just the team, but if you're looking at it from a fan's perspective, the picture that you can see behind us, when you see the full version of that photo, it changes the dynamic of the club.
Yeah.
Like there was a whole stand there that were literally lapping up everything that Juan Mata did at the full-time whistle. Like, this is the transformative effect that a marquee can have on a football club.
And anyone who wasn't there and then sees that photo thinks, I want to go to the next time. I want to go to that and be there and experience that, and they should.
Well, I'm going down on Friday, so I'll experience it.
Let's hear from the man himself, shall we? He was asked, basically, after the full-time whistle, what's the secret to the longevity in the career of Juan Mata? Take a listen.
I think it's about motivation. Football, many times, is a state of mind. And this year, I'm enjoying. I feel at home here, with the coaching staff, with the teammates, with the club. Fantastic people here in Victory. So the more I play, the better I feel. Yeah. And I think that's good news for that stage of my career.
Well, I feel better, that's for sure.
So let's find out more about the technician, shall we? That was Juan Mata from the tactician, Daniel McBreen, someone who's done this many a times on this show before. Macca, we've seen so many good parts about Juan Mata's game since he's been here. But that game at the weekend in particular felt like it showcased some of the things that young kids who are watching the A-League and watching football from around the world can take a look at and maybe try and mirror and learn from maybe the subtleties that aren't necessarily that obvious. Starting with that first goal, because it's not just a brilliant shot from long range, it's everything that he identifies in the build-up to that incident.
Yeah, exactly. When you look at the highlights, everyone goes, wow, look at the strike, look at that strike, but it's the little things that he does that gets him into those positions. So when we go to the first goal that he scored from long range, and just have a look at his positioning as the press goes here. So here comes the press, he's under pressure. Look at him here, in front, on the front foot. So if anything drops out into this area here, he's the first man. Now that's predicting and not being reactive to the play, but being proactive. I can step into that space if that ball comes out. As it rolls on, we see that's what happens. The pressure comes out and he's got the presence of mind, and that's where we see the quality of him to be able to finish like that. But if he doesn't have that presence of mind to be on the front foot, ready to go into the press for anything that drops out, he doesn't get that opportunity. Probably they get the ball back again and it's another recycled play.
Oh, I agree. I think he already knows he's going to shoot before the defenders even cop the ball up. I think he's constantly kind of scanning and assessing the situation and evaluating it and thinking, if this happens, what will my move be? So that when it does eventuate, he already knows what to do, because you notice the ball was spilled. He shoots. He knows the keeper's off the line without even looking up. He doesn't have to get his head up because he already knows the situation, and that's his biggest strength. Is I think that his brain's like a computer. It's constantly looking and thinking, well, how can I be a threat if this happens or if this unfolds? So when one of those situations does unfold, he already knows exactly where to have his first touch, when to shoot or where to pass. He just knows.
Without a doubt.
So the first goal we saw from Juan Mata was, looking maybe when he's got a little bit more time and he's anticipating what might happen. The second is all about him knowing that he doesn't have that much time, but he already knows what he's going to do, and it's about making time slow down around him, Macca, even though there's players and it's the middle of a Melbourne Derby and there's chaos going around everywhere. Yeah,
again, just what Tommy said there about knowing what's going to happen around you and what players do in a game. As this run rolls on, we'll see that he assesses the situation, what's happening in front of him and what's going on around him. Now, you see here, the play comes out. As the ball goes forward now, as he's running forward, he's watching what everyone's doing in front of him. He's assessing the situation. Now he sees everyone's running to the box. Watch him slow down his run here. As everyone gets dragged into the box, watch him slow down, peels off to the space. Now, here again, he gives himself enough time and space away from Teague to be deep enough and wide enough that he knows he's got now time to have the touch and get that shot off quickly. Now, if he knocks that touch or takes that touch too central, Ryan Teague's going to be able to cut him out. If he goes too far forward, these two can step forward, and then Atkinson is coming from the left as well. So his touch has to be perfect. Into this little sweet zone in the middle, right onto his left foot where he can strike it when no one can block it off. And the quality to stick it into the net as well.
He makes that look so much easier than it really is. I think that finish was much harder than it looked. But, Ryan Teague, I think that he was a little bit slow to close down Juan Mata after his touch. But I think if that's any other player, he probably did the right thing and gave himself the right amount of space and he would have been able to block it. But because Mata, as you touched on, has that touch and can get the shot away so quickly, I think that's hard to defend against, to be honest.
Yeah.
So those were the goals. Let's take a look at the actual passing ability of Juan Mata, shall we? Because, he's a man who's made a career out of not just scoring great goals, but registering great assists as well. The technician El Mago, the magician in Spanish, is what that means. And he showcased that for the third goal, the killer in this game for Claris Mario Santos. The pass itself is unbelievable, but it's, Macca, I guess the know-how and the manipulation of the ball and knowing exactly where the defence is and what not just what he thinks needs to be done, but what Santos needs in order to go on and put the ball in the back of the net.
And it all happens even before that. So before we even get to the pass where he's on the ball, we're going to see that he actually sets this up and says that if we win this ball, I want you in this position. So here's a throw-in for Melbourne City here. Here's Juan Mata. Look, he's out there pointing to the other side to, it looks like to Claris Mario Santos going, stay up there because if that ball comes to me, I am going to put you on a plate in behind. We go forward a little bit quickly. Yeah, they go in, the ball comes in. Here it is, the ball breaks. There they are, lots of bodies around the ball. Now, Tommy touched on this before. We've got runners going forward. They know when he's got the ball that they can just go. because he's going to put the ball in a position where they can run onto it. He won't. You know that he's not going to put it behind you. He's not going to make it where you've got to change your run. And now watch the precision on this pass as he bends it around his teammate, away from the defenders, that gives him the space now to be able to cut back inside as well. That is a class ball. That is a ball that goes exactly into the path so he doesn't break his run, but also gives the defenders no chance to cut it out. Another lesser player might have tried to just put it straight over the top, and that's where they could have got him with their head. But that ball, no chance whatsoever.
And I think the key in this example as well was how early he gave the ball, because, when the defenders are sprinting back towards their own goal, it becomes infinitely more difficult to kind of stop the attack. And, he didn't hesitate to give the pass. And I think that's the difference between him and what other players would do. They would take 1 or 2 extra touches and the moment's lost. Whereas the only decision he had to make was whether to use the outside of the foot, the inside of the foot. How can he, as you touched on, manipulate the ball to put it exactly where he needs to? And he obviously did it perfectly.
The ball can travel faster than any player. Juan Mata knows that better than any player as well. Now, we mentioned Tommy being a winger and Macca being a striker and how they'd love the service like that. Somebody else who said he'd love service like that is Archie Thompson. Scored plenty of goals in the A-League. He reckons he would have scored a few more if he was playing with Juan Mata.
Archie, it begged the question from some of our producers. How many goals would you have scored if you were playing with a prime Juan Mata in behind? I mean, you'd have an absolute field day, wouldn't you?
1 million. No, look, I think I definitely would have had a lot more, because what he does really well and is that he always honours, when I say honour, is that like when someone makes a run, he doesn't look to go out and try something else. Or he actually plays the ball where he sees the run. And I think I would have loved that, because I made a lot of runs. Okay, I was offside about 1,000 times, but if that's delivered perfectly when the run's there, I mean, you can see why he's creating. I just think he's a fantastic player for a good striker.
So that's us waxing lyrical on Juan Mata and Melbourne Victory. There are 2 teams playing the original rivalry, though. The other is Adelaide United, a team who are in good form themselves, gents. They come into this one off the back of a resounding 4-0 victory over a pretty hapless Perth Glory at the moment. Adelaide will be confident, though, won't they, coming into this one, given the amount of goals. Juan Muniz is starting to create things and score goals as well. Johnny Yull is playing very well. They're going to be confident. Yeah,
I think Jovanovic as well. They're a little similar to Newcastle, how we were saying. It's not just one person contributing. It's all of their players are contributing. And, 1 week, one of them can have an off day, but the other ones will pick up the slack. And I think they have been sensational. And I think a lot of people are sleeping on Adelaide, because when Craig Goodwin got injured 2 or 3 weeks ago, I think a lot of us kind of expected them maybe to start sliding down the table, but it's been the complete opposite. They were great in this game and never really had to get to second gear to get the better of Perth, to be honest, in this game. But they're looking really good, and we'll go into this game full of confidence.
I think with Macca, Johnny Yull in particular, right, he's had a really, really good kind of run of form and got his body right, which I think is really interesting for Adelaide, because he was someone that attracted interest from La Liga. And Almeria had a bid rejected for him about 18 months ago, which shows volumes of again, more overseas clubs are looking at the younger talent that's coming through on Australia, but not just specifically on Johnny Yull, but it feels as though they've kind of, maybe from someone who isn't a former professional footballer but watches the game, it feels as though they've now really got themselves on board with what Ayrton Andreoli is trying to implement and the way he wants them to play. Is that a fair remark?
I think so, yeah. And I think it always takes a new manager time, but he had that relationship with a lot of them from before, from working in the junior space as well. They're the masters of this anyway, aren't they? Let's be honest. They are probably one of the benchmarks of how to bring in young players in and just dot a couple of senior players in there. You mentioned Muniz. I think he's been fantastic. Yeah, he's starting to now get starts as well. Each different player steps up at different times when needed. They can rely on each other, and when they're on form, they are another team that is... I know they have the confidence, or we know they have the confidence that they can go, we'll beat them today.
Yeah. Well, it is a fixture that's always red hot in the Isuzu A-League. It'll be no different at AAMI Park on Friday night. Now, unfortunately for Wellington Phoenix, their rivalry has been completely one-sided since it came into existence. The New Zealand Derby finished 5-0.
Look away now, Nix fans.
Look away now. Josh Oluwayemi, I mean... It sounds patronising to say the poor bloke, but I mean, I don't really know what else to say that's going to comfort him if he watches this show, because it's an absolute horror moment for him. But Macca, that moment in particular, the first goal, Is that necessarily a surprise given what you've kind of been hearing about what he's being asked to do?
Yeah, well, I was speaking to some coaching staff from another A-League club, and they did say that they had noticed in the warm-ups before that the goalkeeper coach for the Nix in the past has gone into the centre circle with the goalkeeper outside the box and sort of lobbed balls in, and they practice the keeper heading the ball away. Now, whether that's a layover from the high line earlier on in the year, and just remember that Oluwayemi's been out for a while with an injury, that maybe he was still in that mindset of the high line, I'm up there and I've got to be out there to clear things with my head. So, yes, okay, he misjudged his timing, and we all probably say, well, maybe he should step back into the box and just pick it up. But if that's what they're told to do, then is it all on him? Yep, he's mistimed it, but he was doing what he was asked to do.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, but and you look at like that moment in the context of the game, you know, the psychological blow that has to the whole team and to their confidence. And we saw the same thing happen the first time they played Auckland in Wellington this season, conceding a goal after, what was it, like 20 seconds, I think. So, you know, 2 disastrous starts, and for Giancarlo Italiano, you know, to lose derbies is one thing, but to lose in that manner, I think it's always difficult to come back from that.
Let's hear from the now former Wellington Phoenix boss, Giancarlo Italiano, shall we? He handed in his resignation after the game, after they were, of course, thrashed by Auckland 5-0 in that derby.
Last year was tough for the fans. I think, you know, even losing 6-1 in that Auckland derby, that hurt a lot. You know, largely, I remember that game, I was trying to do a lot of things, wearing a lot of hats, trying to get the team back to scratch. You know, there was a lot of issues, and that was excusable then, but to lose 5-0 at home, you know, with, you know, the season still to play for is unacceptable, and I take full responsibility, you know. So I've told the club, I go, look, tendered my resignation, and you know, I think, you know, it's easier for someone to come in and just with new energy and refocus the group.
So he is no longer the head coach of Wellington Phoenix, Giancarlo Italiano. Gents, is it that much of a surprise? I guess it's a surprise in as much as that he resigned in his press conference, or told the journos that he just resigned going into that press conference. But then when you see the quotes from Sean Gill, who's in the football department at Wellington Phoenix, said in, you know, the aftermath of that Chiefy's position became untenable. Mm-hmm. Does it kind of feel a little bit, not necessarily that he jumped before he was pushed, but it was kind of beyond repair, even if that derby hadn't ended in a 5-0 shellacking like it did?
If there was loss in the derby, I think it was getting close, but it was the manner in which they lost, and the manner in which they have lost to them in the past as well. 6 derbies, 6 losses, it's something like 20 goals against to 4. Yeah. They've been absolutely, you know, slapped about in those derbies, to be honest. And when you look at Chiefy's first year, they had a great run. Yeah, they had a really good squad, and to be fair, a lot of them left and were sold overseas, and players have gone on to bigger and better things in some cases. Last year was a disappointing year, crashed back down to earth. Again, it was feeling that way, and you sort of felt that maybe the players, they were looking for a change. And that's not all on Chiefy, the players as well, because sometimes you get that there might be sweeping changes, but you just felt that there was inevitability about it. They were just plodding along. They were losing games or losing points when they were in positions to win, and it just felt like they needed a change. And I think Chiefy he knew, look, it wasn't good enough, and fair play to him. He's put his hand up and said, I'm going, but I think he was going anyway.
Yeah, I think the same. I think if you look forward now at the Nix and what it means, I think a lot of these players now, given the form of the team, are playing for their futures, to be honest. So I think that the players are going to need to give some kind of a bounce, you know, for the last 8 games, the last 8 rounds of the season, in order to earn a new contract or get a move. Because, you know, when a team struggled for 2 seasons in a row and you've been a part of that as a player, you know, that's difficult on you don't want that on your record. And I think that this is a real opportunity for them to kind of, you know, put things right and maybe give their fans something to cheer about, and see where they land on the table from that. But also personally, I think kind of get some pride back as well.
Get some pride back. Chiefy, take a bit of time off. I know he's a big football manager player, is Giancarlo Italiano, so I dare say he's going to be doing that and walking his dog like he said he would be. So rest up, and we'll see you back in the game not too long, sure. Let's have a look at the ladder, shall we, gents? Because before we look at the fixtures, this is going to dictate. There's going to be a lot of teams that are looking over their shoulder at the moment, and especially Newcastle Jets going in for that 9th straight win if they can manage it. So they are flying high at the top of the league. Auckland still trying to keep pace with them. Then it becomes a little bit more more bunched up. You've got Sydney FC and Adelaide in 29 points. Victory and Macarthur, again, we spoke about the Bulls being in that position in that top 6 for a long time now. People seem to forget about Macarthur. Then the Mariners. This is one, I know, if you look how tight that league is, the Mariners were second bottom going into the last round, and now they're 3 points off the top spot after Macarthur were beaten by the Jets. I mean, can you remember it being this tight and this congested? Maybe by the Wanderers, who are obviously licking their wounds and feeling sorry for themselves at the bottom of the ladder. Yeah. Can you remember it being this tight?
Well, you look at all the fixtures that are coming up, and really anyone can beat anyone. And half the weeks, you ask us who's going to win a game, and the team we say is going to win ends up losing, and that's kind of just the nature of how this league's gone this season. So I've no doubt the teams in the top 6 will be looking at teams like the Mariners and Melbourne City in particular, who's in 8th. And when was the last time Melbourne City was in this position? It's been quite a while, I think. And I don't know. For me personally, I still think Melbourne City is going to get into the 6. So those top 6, they're going to be looking behind them and thinking they're coming. It seems like with the quality of their squad, I feel like it's just only a matter of time before they find their feet.
The season after Western United won the championship, we got to the second last round of the season, and every team could still make the finals with 2 rounds to go. And this season is shaping up to be very similar. It's so tight, it's great. The competitive nature of our league is quality, and it keeps us on its toes, and it's really hard for our tips as well.
Really hard for our tips, making us look like mugs every single weekend. That will do us for Total A Leagues this week. There's some huge games. Go out and enjoy them if you can. If not, you can watch them all on Channel 10, Paramount Plus. Thanks as ever for watching Total A Leagues. I've been James Dodd, Daniel McBreen, Tommy, our residents here as ever. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.